Good afternoon. As always, man, I'll start with a review of our last performance, and obviously it was a stinker. We stunk up the joint, myself included, first and foremost. And I think part of moving on from it is first just acknowledging that component of it. As I mentioned post-game, you can outline a performance like that in a lot of ways. San Fran got their agenda done. We didn't get our agenda done. That was a gut feeling, a reaction. I thought the tape displayed that. There were certain things about how they played that we had a level of anticipation for. I'm sure there's certain things that how we play that people have a certain anticipation for. I think they did their high volume things better, obviously, than we did ours. And so, you got to carry that stench for a while when you have a performance like that. Coupled with the fact, man, that it was opening weekend kind of adds to the sting, but we're big boys. We can take it. We better roll our sleeves up, man, and shift our focus toward our next opportunity. We better not forget what happened. We better learn lessons from it. And that's what yesterday was about for us. On a Monday, win or lose, man, we're always trying to assess what happened and why, review our processes and our planning, how we divide the labor up, et cetera, and then plot a course in an effort to move forward. And so win or lose, that's the focus. Obviously, based on the last performance, we had a lot of work to do yesterday. First, just assessing what happened and why. And then secondarily, man, analyzing the planning component of it, how we allocated our time from a preparedness standpoint, what we asked people to do, their level of skill and ability relative to that. And so I'm just giving you an outline kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about when you perform like that. It's all of us. It's planning, it's coaching, it's playing. We're all in this thing together, man. That's this game at this level. And so we take it on the chin like grown men and professionals do. Hopefully we learn from it. We make appropriate and necessary adjustments, whether it's to our planning or our process or our agenda, division of labor, et cetera. We'll do that. We won't overreact. We won't have a knee-jerk reaction, but it does require our attention and our time. Thankfully, we got an additional day this week in preparation. We're going to use that time wisely, hopefully, in an effort to prepare our guys. Specifically about the game, as I mentioned, on offense, man, there were a lot of ills, but the chief ill was possession down football. When you're not successful on possession down football, you don't give yourself a chance to establish rhythm, to establish run game, to highlight certain matchup components that you might like, to diversify your attack, and all of the above. And so volume is king. We didn't have enough volume, and it was because of possession down failure. But again, as I mentioned after the game, man, I never want to take away from the professionals that we compete against. They had a lot to do with it. We understand that they had a really good defense, and particularly their front and their continuity within their core players and their ability to wreak havoc on games and so forth. And so we know what they were capable of. On the defensive side of the ball, man, we had to minimize their run game and Christian McCaffrey, man, and we failed there. He popped a big one. And it kind of changed the trajectory of things. Obviously, largely, I would like to see us do a better job, but that big one was an exclamation point. But largely defensively, I thought communication was not up to snuff. Our pre-snap movements and adjustments were not sure enough, were not solid enough. We looked like a group that was in a loud environment for a first time, or like we had some new people. And so that's coaching as well. We got to be mindful of what we ask guys to do under certain circumstances, and we worked our tail off to combat the crowd noise component, the newness component of some of our pieces in terms of how we communicate and adjust and deal with in-game circumstances, and we just didn't do a good enough job of those things. I didn't think we did a good enough job of punting the football. I thought that was a component of it, particularly early, the field positioning component. Their first two scores were on short fields. If you're not getting off the field on possession downs and your net punting isn't good, chances are your opponents are going to be on short fields. When they're on short fields, it drives up the propensity to score. There are analytical studies that outline that drive starts relative to scoring. We all understand that in this business. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about that component of the game. Was also a significant letdown for us. There were some positives, but no need of mentioning them in this setting. We're not looking to feel good about ourselves. We're looking to get right. And so we got some work to do in an effort to do that. We got an AFC North familiar foe coming in on primetime television in an effort to do that. We're familiar with them. They're familiar with us. And so, man, it's going to be AFC North football. I'll talk about them for a few minutes. Obviously, if you're talking about the Cleveland Browns, man, it starts with Mr. Chubb. What he is capable of doing, the way he controls a game, and so forth is a little bit different but similar to Christian McCaffrey in that he keeps them on schedule, he controls the climate. If we're doing anything in this football game, man, we got to work to minimize that guy's impact. That is challenging because of the talent that they have around him, quite frankly. Starting with their quarterback, Deshaun Watson, man. This guy is really talented, man. His ability to extend plays, his ability to attack a defense vertically, his ability to see the field as plays get extended, his arm talent in terms of throwing the ball downfield. He's got a myriad of eligibles that are challenging. Amari Cooper is top-notch. Njoku has grown up in that program. It's been cool to watch his maturation and development in all elements of their game over the time that he has been there, run game, passing game, etc. They got some new pieces that provide variety. They're just a challenging group. Can't say enough about Peoples-Jones, man. That's another guy who's kind of grown up within their program and kind of just carved out a niche for himself continually over time. They got a solid group up front, top-notch guard play, etc. They got a quality veteran offensive line coach, man. We got a full plate in front of us in terms of some of those things. On the defensive side of the ball, they've been a top-notch four-down group in terms of personnel. They went out and hired a veteran four-down personnel expert in Jim Schwartz. Man, I've known him for a long time. He fits them. They fit him. They get after people with that front four. They picked up Za'Darius Smith to partner with Myles Garrett. They always got a top-notch partner for Myles Garrett. A number of years ago it was Olivier Vernon. Most recently it was Clowney, and now it's Za'Darius. We respect Za'Darius. We know him, obviously, from being in this division. He's a dominant run-down player. He's also adept at passing, rushing the passer. He's a guy that's an outside-inside guy. They'll move him around. They'll move 95 around. It'll be difficult to nail down where they are and work to minimize them from a protection standpoint. They got some front flexibility that aids them in that regard. They got good second-level linebacker play. They got some continuity there. They got Wu, who they drafted out of Notre Dame, man, who is a sideline-to-sideline tackler, man. He covers a lot of ground. Walker and Taki round out their second-level group. Those guys share reps at times in a variety of packages. Schwartz knows what he's doing. They're connected in those ways. Man, they got a veteran secondary. Those guys have been together now for a length of time, and particularly their corner group. Ward and Newsome, first-round draft picks, man, guys that have grown up in that program. To be blunt, I thought the corners won the game for them last week. Their ability to stand on the line of scrimmage, man, and challenge the Cincinnati Bengals, I thought was really impressive. They stood up time and time again. It allowed their safeties and linebackers to get focused on minimizing, mixing in some of the run game, and I thought that was the catalyst for the performance. And so, got a lot of work ahead of us, man. A familiar group, a good group, a group that's looking to go 2-0 in the division, I would imagine. And we got Monday Night Football. I'll pause and talk about some injury things because we got a few to discuss. As you guys know, Cam is out. I don't have a lot of details in terms of scheduling, in terms of his surgery or what that might look like. I'll give you an update on the other side of the surgery when we get a complete totality of time and what it is and so forth and things of that nature. Obviously, Losing Cam is significant, but that's what team is about. Replacing Cam is not a one-man job, man. It is a multiple-man job and a coach's job, because it changes your schematics when you lose significant players. And so we all acknowledge that, and we all run to that, not away from that. That's an opportunity for us to show what team is about. Things that we hold near and dear, like next man up. We have an opportunity to make that real when we're faced with the adversity that comes with attrition in this game. And so that's our mindset. That's our plan. Multiple people, schematics included in that. Diontae Johnson, obviously, with a hamstring injury, is probably unavailable this week. We were waiting to take a picture of that, man, to get a realistic look at how long that might be, but I think it's reasonable to assess that he won't be available to us this week. Feel real comfortable with our in-house people, man, Gunner and others, in terms of elevating and being ready to carry the load and participate. Other injuries associated with play that we're more optimistic about, particularly because we got an additional day and a half of prep. Chooks is in the concussion protocol. Pat Freiermuth may be limited at the early portions of the week. James Daniel, Larry Ogunjobi, to name a few, in terms of some bumps and bruises that may limit them at the early portions of the week. But again, we got an additional day, and we'll definitely take it and lean in on this next opportunity. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, beyond what Cam brings just from a playability standpoint, everything else about who he is and what he is how about that?
You know, I don't imagine we would lose that. You know, Cam is not the type of guy that moves away from his teammates, whether he's participating or not. And so, you know, some of the intangible things, some of the things that you get day to day outside the white lines, we'll still receive the benefit of that, but make no mistake, there's enough for us to do replacing his tangible contributions, his play, his presence, and so forth.
Mike, what have you seen from Leal and Loudermilk and his fit?
Man, I've been really impressed by the growth and development and what those guys have shown me throughout team development. Not only Leal and Loudermilk, but younger guys like Benton and others. I thought that was one of the strengths of our group coming out of team development, the depth and competition and the tough decisions that we had to make in the defensive line. And it won't be a long period of time before we get a chance to call upon that. And so we'll get a chance to see what that depth looks like in play.
Armon Watts, what's he bringing to you guys?
He certainly is a guy that's under consideration. He's a guy that brought veteran experience, played a lot of ball in Chicago a year ago. I thought he really warmed up to our environment as he got a sense of what we were about and what we were asking, and that's why we continue to do business with him. But there's a reason he's been an inactive type, man. He's continually getting up to snuff with what it is that we do, and technically and in the nuances and the detail and so forth. And he had a good week last week, and we'll see where the week leads us this week in terms of making decisions about who we use and how we divide the labor up. But certainly he's under consideration. He's a veteran guy that's played some ball, and that's why we kept him on our 53.
Mike, Kenny was pretty clear that he didn't play the way that he wanted to or expected to Sunday. What about him tells you that he can bounce back and have a better performance Monday?
Just his commitment. You know, there's football justice. When you work at it, man, you generally get good things that come out of it. This is a guy that's fully committed. This is a guy that works his tail off, and largely, man, those guys create their own fortune. And so that's my general tenor about the trajectory of him and his career, but also in the short term. It's reasonable to expect guys that work the way he works and prepares the way he prepares to bounce back from negative performance. Individually and collectively, I expect this group to do similar things.
Mike, what did you like what you saw from Allen Robinson, and does he assume a little bit of a bigger role down there?
You know, he has a pretty big role. Obviously, it's subject to change based on matchups and schematic, game in, game out, planning and so forth. That's why we went and got him. He's a steady presence, man. He's a professional. He's highly competitive. I think all of those things were evident on tape, and I don't think that surprised any of us. And sure, it's a reasonable expectation that his role might grow due to game circumstances, particularly if you're down a significant contributor like Diontae.
Mike, some of those top draft picks, Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., had some limited snap counts this game. What went into that decision?
Nothing really. All of those guys are performing well. We expect those guys to be contributors not only over the course of their career here, but this year. We dipped their toe in the water in week 1. We tried to have limited roles in an effort to control what it is that they were preparing for. And so if you got a narrow focus in terms of your preparation, you tee up the potential for a nice high flow and performance, and then we build from that as we move. We feel comfortable with our depth and competition across all positions, and so that afforded us an opportunity to do that with those guys. No negative reports on the trajectory of their performance or how they assimilate themselves into this journey. You should expect their contributions to continue to grow, whether it's Broderick, Joey, Benton, Darnell Washington, Herbert. I imagine that the same applies to all of those guys.
Mike, what goes into your defensive front communicating faster and establishing the control of line of scrimmage against a team like the Browns that loves to run the ball?
You know, ball's ready, so are we. We live by that mantra. The offense dictates the pace of play. They do. They have the football. And so our general mentality is we are always communicating as quickly as we can and readying ourselves for action with that understanding.
Coach, one of the knocks last year was Kenny Pickett started out slowly, as did the offense, and that kind of caused some problems. So is anything being done to adjust the play calling or adjust the pace of the game so they wouldn't be as sort of lethargic as they were? Every
day of our lives, but not in reaction to what transpired last year, just professional due diligence. It's our job to be thoughtfully non-rhythmic. It's our job to work our tails off to make sure that we get off the fast and fluid starts. Obviously, we didn't do it in week 1, and so we're preparing for week 2.
Mike, was Pickett banged up at all on that first sack, and did you get evaluated for concussions?
Level of banged up, I'm not certain of. You know, there's so many protocols in place now, independent medical specialists and so forth. I would imagine the quarterback position has less of my eyes directly than it used to because of it. So I didn't have direct eyes on what it is that you mentioned. Obviously, I saw it after, but there was no hesitancy from the independent medical experts and so forth. He didn't express any, symptoms relative to that play that you mentioned, so it was a non-discussion for us.
Is there anything you put your finger on regarding his relative inaccuracy to what we saw in August?
We're not looking for comfort or excuses. The tape is who we are at this juncture, and so we're going to work to change the tape that we have control over. That tape's in the bin. That's his, it's mine, it's ours. Monday night is a little bit different, and that's why we're working.
You mentioned how it still starts with Chubb, but you have now a 7-game sample size with Watson as the quarterback under Stefanski. How do you find their marriage between the pass game and the run game with him being woven in now, especially with an offseason?
I don't know, man. Ask Stefanski. Maybe he'll provide an answer. We're not in control of that mix, that desire, what it looks like week in and week out, or largely from a personality perspective, how they choose to divvy that up. I know what we need to be prepared for. And National Football League, man, you can't lose in the guts of the thing in the line of scrimmage. We gave up a lot of yards to a significant back a week ago. It's reasonable for us to maintain that posture. To respect Mr. Chubb, he's gotten us in the past. They've allocated a lot of resources in terms of what they pay their guys up front, the talent that they hold, the interior people specifically are a tandem. And so that's why I said what I said.
I know it's been one game, but how would you say Schwartz has changed the character of what is generally a pretty familiar defense?
Again, it's one game. I think their interest in him was because of his ability to do some of the things that they've done in the past and utilize some of the talent that's special. And so I don't know that they were looking for significant differences. Obviously, there are always going to be differences. Different people bring different agendas and perspectives, but I don't know that there's anything through one body of work that strikes me like a lightning bolt at this juncture.
Does having tape of what went wrong against McCaffrey help you prepare for Chubb a little better?
I'm sorry?
Does having tape on what went wrong against McCaffrey help you prepare against Nick Chubb a little better?
Man, we've got enough tape against Nick Chubb. You know what I mean? Man, we played him a few years ago up there, man. We had this mantra, we was gonna slow down Mr. Chubb, man. He reeled off about a 40-yard run like on the second play of the game. You know, we got respect for that guy and them and their ability to run the football.
Mike, after the game, Patrick Peterson was talking to us and he said he's really confident in the veterans in this group, not only to kind of turn the page and help this team move forward, but to correct all the mistakes that were made on Sunday. Why is their leadership just so important, especially moving forward after a game like that?
I just think anytime you got been there, done that guys, they're able to provide perspective for those who haven't. And that's what veterans provide. They provide it in bad times. They also provide it in good times. Oftentimes you're defined by how you handle success more so than failure. You don't get to the National Football League as an individual unless you're able to overcome some adversity, bounce back from injury, bad performances, etc., smile in the face of adversity. Veterans help you deal with the good times, keep your feet on the ground, remaining focused, etc. That's why we consciously added some of the quality human beings who happen to be veteran football players within our program, specifically in the last offseason.
Like, how do you assess the rotation of inside linebackers that you guys used? And Quan mentioned that there needed to be better tackling. Is that something that you guys can improve in a week during practice?
Certainly. I believe that we can. I'm not painting with a broad brush and having knee-jerk reactions and, you know, drastically altering our approach to business based on one performance, like I said in the opening. And so we got 3 varsity linebackers. We're going to utilize those guys based on circumstances and matchups, like I said, transparently, and that posture has not changed.
Mike, you mentioned the depth with Cam and Diontae's injuries. Will that cover that, or will you look to the outside for defensive lineman or receiver?
You know, we'll obviously, we won't turn a blind eye to the outside. That's just appropriate business. But we're also comfortable with the depth and the competition that we've been able to assemble here in team building.
When you opened up talking about trying to use Monday to figure out what went wrong and why and learn from it, what did you figure out based on what you saw San Francisco's ability to find Ayuk so effectively? Was that a matter of you guys trying to take away so much else, or was that part of their agenda?
Certainly, you know, some of his exploits had to do with our desire to minimize, you know, Kittles and Debo and Christian, but that's what makes awesome units challenging. They got a lot of capable people who are able to rise up and make plays when others garner attention. And so I don't think any of that is surprising to us. His evolution, particularly over the latter half of last year, is kind of reflective of that performance. And so we tip our cap to him, man. He made a combat 50-50 catch for a touchdown. He made some other significant plays. He played a really good football game.
How do you Dan Moore's work at right tackle if you would have to move over that side?
Again, I'm not ready to assess or talk about hypotheticals in that regard. There's a number of guys that I spoke to in terms of the front part of their week being altered, but it doesn't necessarily change our trajectory in terms of planning or their inclusion in the plan. And so, Chooks, James Daniels, Larry Ogunjobi, Pratt Freiermuth, as we sit here and make plans for participation, it includes them.
Mike, having a chance to look at the tape, how did you feel like your offensive line played? It seemed like they were going to minimize Bosa, but maybe had some trouble with some of the other guys.
I thought they did an awesome job, particularly from a protection standpoint, minimizing Bosa, and really, I thought from a protection standpoint, we were really solid until the very end when we got really one-dimensional. You know, upward and onward with that group, man. Upward and onward with all of us. We realize how we perform. We own it. We're ready to get back out there and get back in the world of the competitors.
Mike, Joey Porter played at 7 snaps, I think, solely in the time. Is that going to be his role for now, or do you expect more?
That was his role last weekend, and they did such a really good job of staying on schedule that it was probably less than we anticipated. And oftentimes you guys are asking about divisional labor, the amount of exposure of talent and so forth. We have intentions and an agenda, and sometimes game circumstances change those agendas. And that's why I described the game the way I described it. The 49ers were able to play to their agenda and their plans, and we were not. Obviously, we had intentions of playing Joey more than that, but you better have him behind the chains and off schedule a little bit more than we had him off schedule. If not, then you'll play 7 snaps of dime because you don't play dime on 3rd down and 2. You know what I mean? And so, same thing on offense, man. You want to run the ball at people. You want to wear people down with Najee and Jalen and so forth. But if you're taking 15 snaps through 2 quarters of football because you're 3 and out, you're not winning possession downs, that's not going to transpire. And so I just wanted to pause and be really transparent about what I'm talking about when I'm talking about agendas and why division of labor may appear to be what it was, and it might not reflect our intentions or our personality, etc.
Mike, what do you need to see from Desmond King this week to be able to feel comfortable being game day active?
You know, I'll let the week tell me, man. You know, I'm not worried about his level of conditioning or health. We checked that box before we acquired him, but knowing what to do, how and how much he communicates, infusing him into a group that already includes some new people. And so I'm just talking out loud about some of the thought processes that go into the discussion about when and how we infuse him into it.
What about the Browns secondary impresses you so far, just what you've seen? You know about Ward and Newsome, but Delpit was a big factor in their win over Cincinnati last week as well.
Taking nothing away from Delpit, and McLeod, I think, played a lot because Thornhill was unavailable. They all played really well. But I thought if you wanted to summarize the game in a small number of words, their corner ability to stand up and man-to-man on the line of scrimmage versus Cincinnati's receivers was the story of the game on either side of the ball.
Anyone else? Just one clarification on Cam and his injury. Was that completely in game, or was that all nagging him from last week?
In game.
He's on the play where he hit Purdy towards the end of the first.
I don't know when it happened. I had a couple conversations about him feeling less than ideal in game. So I'm not sure about the sequence of events, but he got injured in game.
Anyone else? All right.
Thanks, guys.